Minneapolis Democrat mayor made sure his focus was on protecting not children, not Catholics, but the trans community. Here he is talking to a nodding Aaron Burnett on CNN last night. Watch.
Obviously, I've heard about the rhetoric and the narrative that is being pushed out, but here's the thing. Anybody that is going to use this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any community has lost touch with a common humanity. We got to be operating not out of hate for any group, but out of a love for our children. That's where the focus needs to be right now. A love for our kids, seeing these kids not just as somebody else's kids, this horrific thing happened, but what if it was our own? How would we feel then? So, look, we need to be standing up for every community out there, a Catholic community too, by the way.
He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything. Hate, we can't be operating out of hate for the trans community. It's not about hating the trans community. It's about being honest about what was wrong with this obviously extremely ill, mentally ill man who picked up his guns, 3 of them to be exact, and shot a bunch of kids. It's not about hate. How dare you try to turn this into a pro-LGBTQ moment? We have to get really honest about what was wrong with this shooter. And P.S., it's the same thing that's been wrong with shooters in a multitude of mass shootings now, which your side, Mayor, refuses to acknowledge. What is this guy, like 29, 32 at most? Where were you during Sandy Hook? Because I don't remember you out there, Mr. Mayor. Some of us were with parents, were at these scenes moments after the gunfire went off. You've got, yes, one terrible tragedy in your community. It's about a lot more than your alleged hate for certain communities. It's not about that at all. It's about calling a spade a spade. It's infuriating watching that guy. I mean, also, like, oh, and the Catholic community, by the way. Oh, like, that's an afterthought. Like, yeah, Catholics. Yeah, we're realized. We know that. Catholics were targeted. Thanks for the nod of the head. We really appreciate you deigning to acknowledge that Catholics have been targeted here. I mean, literally putting the group that was the targeted, chosen victims of the shooting as like an afterthought. What this is really about is how mean we are to trans people. When we were planning today's show, I knew there was nobody better to start it with than Matt Walsh. He's host of the Matt Walsh Show on the Daily Wire. He's here with us today. Matt, thanks so much for being here. It's infuriating listening to that guy. Absolutely maddening.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and you expect nothing less from this guy. I mean, remember, this is the mayor, Jacob Frey, who wept at the golden casket of George Floyd back in 2020. So this guy is just a completely pathetic piece of garbage. But you're exactly right that it's way past time that we start being honest about all this, and that includes the fact that trans violence is not an aberration. You know, if it's now that, of course, the media plays this game all the time where they want us to deny the reality that's in front of our face, and when it comes to transgenderism in particular, that's of course been the game for a long time. But it certainly seems as though very often these days when there's a mass shooting. And then we find out a little bit more about the killer. We find out that, oh, they got the she, her pronouns, they, them, non-binary, trans. It certainly seems like that is a big part of the story very often. And it is. And that's what the stats bear out. And also keep something else in mind, that there's no official database of trans violence that any government entity keeps. Probably there should be now. Probably we need that database. But there isn't one, which only means that, like, we only find out about the trans connection to violence when it's one of these big, huge mass shootings that the media has to talk about because they have no choice because of the bloodshed. But there are many other cases of violence, assaults, these sorts of things where maybe nobody is killed. It's not really reported, certainly not on the national scale. And so how often is there a trans connection there? We don't know exactly. Mm-hmm. But my only point is that I think the problem is even worse than any of us realize.
makes perfect sense because you look at what's happening today in the media, and the New York Times does a whole article about the shooter, and the only mention of the gender identity is in the context of pointing out conservatives are attacking it, not even considered as something we should be looking at and trying to figure out what was wrong with this shooter's head. CNN, an article entitled How the Absolutely Incomprehensible Shooting Unfolded by Chelsea Bailey, makes no mention of the shooter's gender identity. USA Today doesn't mention the shooter's gender identity at all. Hat tip to Tom Bevan of Real Clear Politics for pointing these out on X today. They're completely whitewashing it like it's a non-factor, Matt.
Yeah, and they don't want to have the conversation. And by the way, the fact the person is trans, this is obviously a very relevant fact. This is not just some conservative gotcha moment. This is very relevant. Why is it relevant? Well, number one, if somebody identifies as trans, that means that they are delusional. This is a delusional person who is confused about a basic fact of reality, like one of the most basic facts, which is biological reality, their own sex. So this is someone who's has a delusional mindset. We already know that. And also, what are trans people being told? What has the media been telling them for years now? They've been telling them that, if somebody does not affirm your fake identity, then that person is a threat. They're an actual threat to you. You hear the phrase trans genocide has been used many times. And of course, it's completely absurd. There's no genocide happening of trans people. No one's rounding up trans people and killing them. It's completely ridiculous. But what they mean by trans genocide is, people like you, Megyn, or me, who when we go on the air and we say that biological reality exists and we're not going to affirm your delusions, we are somehow participating in a genocide, which makes no sense. But if you have someone who's already mentally ill, they're already suffering from delusions, and then you take that person, you tell them, hey, those people over there, conservatives, Catholics, they're committing a genocide against you. When they refuse to affirm you, they're actually physically harming you. Well, now you're giving that person all the excuse they need, all the pretense they need to commit an act of violence. So you've got Peggy Flanagan, the lieutenant governor, wore a shirt that said "Protect Trans Kids" with like a knife on it. I mean, this is not subtle. You are actively encouraging them to commit acts of violence, and then that's exactly what they go do.
And then on top of that, there's the problem of the way the psychiatric system deals with anyone, child or adult, who says they're trans. And this person started saying it when they were still a minor and apparently got a name change from a male name to a female name when they were a minor. They applied at age 17. And you and I both know, including Miriam Grossman, who was in your wonderful movie, What is a Woman? She's one of the few honest brokers in the field of dealing with this, like the gender dysphoria and trans confusion amongst youth. And she pointed out in your movie and on our show and elsewhere, and I think she's written a book now too, the only standard when someone like this shooter goes in to see a child psychiatrist or any sort of mental health professional is to affirm. You're not allowed to explore possible psychotic breaks that the person may be experiencing, maybe just upset due to a shitty childhood or, parents' divorce, or who knows? It could be a girl's anorexic. She's getting bullied. Has nothing to do with gender. The modern psychiatric standards is to just lean into the gender ideology. And as a result, all those underlying and other things really go untreated.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think we can safely assume that this person, this scumbag, had plenty of experience with the psychiatric community, psychiatrists, therapists, all the rest of it. I mean, I don't have any information about that. I think we can probably assume it. And all of those people, we should have the names of all those people because they all hold a fair amount of responsibility for what happened.
Yes.
Because of course you're exactly right that when you have someone come in, especially a minor, and they're claiming that they're, it's a boy that claims he's a girl. Well, I said before, these people are delusional. They suffer from delusions. And that's, of course, true in many cases. But what you can also have is someone who kind of like knows that they're not actually confused. They actually know that they're not, they don't actually think they're a woman, but they're making this claim for some other reason. And whether it's a fetish, or in the case of a kid, it could be that kid was abused, something else is happening, and this is their way of like coping with it. But because you have to just affirm, you can't get to the bottom of that and actually start talking about what is really going on.
What will the effect of the sparring between President Trump and the Federal Reserve be? Can the Fed take the right action at the right time? Or are we going to be looking at a potential economic slowdown? And what does this mean for your savings? Consider diversifying with gold through Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, global uncertainty, and high inflation. And Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or an old 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or just buy some gold to keep in your safe. First, get educated. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Just text MK to the number 989898. Again, text MK to 989898 and consider diversifying a portion of your savings into gold. So if the Fed cannot stay ahead of the curve for the country, at least you can stay ahead for yourself. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.